People do not always lose respect for you because you did something wrong. Sometimes they lose respect because you removed every cost of reaching you. Your time became instant. Your forgiveness became automatic. Your help became guaranteed. And when access has no limit, people can stop experiencing your presence as a privilege. That is the hidden danger of being too available. You can become essential to someone's comfort while becoming almost invisible to their appreciation. And the moment you finally become less available, you may discover something disturbing. Some people were never attached to your heart. They were attached to your access. Lesson 1. Being needed is not the same as being valued. Sometimes people keep you close because you are always helping, always listening, always fixing, always saying yes. But being useful to someone does not always mean you are precious to them. The real test comes when you cannot give them what they want. Do they still respect you? Do they still care about your feelings? Do they still make time for you? If their kindness disappears the moment your usefulness ends, they may have valued what you did more than who you are. Islam teaches us to be generous, but generosity should never require you to lose yourself. Give with a sincere heart, but remember, you were created to serve Allah, not to become endlessly available for everyone. Lesson 2. Your constant yes trains their entitlement. Every time you say yes when you really need to say no, you teach people something. You teach them that your time is always available. Your energy can always be taken. Your plans can always be moved. At first, they may appreciate your kindness. But if it happens too often, appreciation can slowly turn into expectation. And once kindness becomes expected, people may feel offended when you finally protect yourself. That is why boundaries are not cruelty. Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do is say, "I cannot do this right now." A sincere person will understand, but someone who only loved your availability may become angry. Remember, your yes has value only when you are free to say no. Lesson 3. Some people miss your service, not your soul. Sometimes you think someone misses you, but what they really miss is what you used to do for them. They miss your help, your attention, your quick replies, your constant support. And that can hurt because you believe the connection was deeper. But distance reveals the truth. When you stop carrying everything, the people who truly value you will still care about your heart, your peace, and your presence. The others may only notice that their comfort is gone. Do not confuse being useful with being loved. The people who truly value you will still choose you even when you have nothing to offer but yourself. Lesson 4. They stop missing what never leaves. One of the hardest truths to accept is that people can become used to something beautiful. A person may once have been grateful for your presence. They may have appreciated your calls, your messages, your support, your patience, and the way you always showed up when life became difficult. In the beginning, every act of kindness felt special. They noticed it, they thanked you for it, they understood that you were giving them something valuable. But slowly something can change. When you are always there, people can begin to believe that you will always be there. When you answer every message immediately, they stop seeing the effort behind your reply. When you cancel your own plans every time they need you, they stop seeing your sacrifice. When you forgive every disrespect without changing anything, they may stop fearing the possibility of losing your trust. Your presence becomes normal. And what becomes normal is often noticed less. This does not mean you should disappear to manipulate people. It does not mean you should ignore someone simply to make them chase you. Islam does not teach games. It teaches sincerity, dignity, balance, and wisdom. There is a huge difference between creating fake distance to control someone and creating healthy space because your life also has responsibilities. You have prayers to protect. You have family to care for. You have work to complete. You have a body that needs rest. You have dreams that require attention. You have a heart that needs quiet moments with Allah. You cannot abandon all of that simply because someone expects you to be available every second. Sometimes you become so afraid of disappointing people that you slowly disappoint yourself. You respond while you are exhausted. You listen while your own heart is breaking. You solve everyone else's problems while your own life is being neglected. And because nobody sees the cost, they assume there is no cost. That is where over-availability becomes dangerous. People rarely understand the price of something they receive without interruption. Think about light. When electricity is working every day, most people barely think about it. They walk into a room, touch the switch, and expect the light to appear. But the moment the electricity disappears, suddenly everyone notices what was quietly serving them the entire time. Human relationships can become similar. Someone may not understand how much peace you brought into their life until you are no longer carrying every conversation. They may not realize how often you encourage them until you stop being the person who always repairs their mood. They may not understand how much emotional weight you are carrying until you finally put it down. This is why your absence can sometimes teach what your constant presence could not. But there is something even more important here. Do not wait for people to miss you before you believe you matter. Your value is not created by someone's reaction to your absence. You had value before they noticed you. You have value when they appreciate you. And you still have value when they fail to appreciate you. That understanding changes everything. Because when you know your worth does not depend on being constantly needed, you stop living like you must prove yourself every day. You stop thinking, if I do not reply immediately, maybe they will forget me. You stop thinking, if I do not solve this problem, maybe they will find someone else. You stop thinking, if I say no, maybe they will stop loving me. A relationship that survives only because you never say no is already unhealthy. Real care does not require constant proof. Real friendship can survive delayed replies. Real love can survive personal space. Real respect does not disappear because you are busy today. And a person who truly cares about you will understand that your life cannot revolve around them. Sometimes we unknowingly teach people to expect too much from us because we are afraid of appearing selfish. So we answer at midnight. We accept responsibilities that are not ours. We become emotional emergency rooms for people who never ask whether we are okay. We carry secrets, problems, complaints, disappointments, and endless conversations. Then one day we feel exhausted and wonder why nobody notices. But people often follow the pattern we allow. If you have spent years communicating, I am always available, people may believe you. If you have always rushed to rescue them, they may expect rescue. If you have never protected your time, they may not know that your time needs protection. This does not make them automatically evil. Sometimes we created the pattern together. And that is actually good news, because patterns can change. You can begin replying when you genuinely have time. You can stop canceling important responsibilities for problems that other people are capable of handling themselves. You can listen without becoming responsible for fixing everything. You can love people without becoming their entire support system. You can care without carrying. You can be kind without being permanently accessible. At first, some people may be surprised. Someone may ask, why are you different? But perhaps you are not becoming colder. Perhaps you are becoming healthier. Perhaps you are finally understanding that your attention is one of the most valuable things you possess. Where your attention goes, your life goes. Every hour you give away is an hour you never receive again. That is why protecting time is not arrogance. Time is a gift from Allah. Your energy is a gift. Your health is a gift. Your mind is a gift. And when something is a gift, you are responsible for how you use it. Imagine reaching the end of a year and realizing that you spent hundreds of hours trying to keep everyone satisfied while your own purpose remained untouched. Imagine discovering that you were constantly present in everybody else's life, but absent from your own. That is not balance. You were not created simply to react every time another person wants your attention. There must be parts of your life where the phone is quiet. There must be moments when you are not solving anyone's problem. There must be time for worship, reflection, growth, family, work, learning, rest, and rebuilding yourself. Those moments do not make you unavailable in a bad way. They make you available for what matters. And strangely, when you stop being available for everything, your presence often becomes more meaningful when you do show up. Now you are listening because you chose to listen, not because you are afraid to refuse. Now you are helping from strength instead of exhaustion. Now your yes comes from sincerity instead of guilt. That kind of presence feels different. There is warmth in it. There is intention in it. There is peace in it. People can feel when you are giving because you genuinely want to give, and when you are giving because you are terrified of disappointing them. One builds connection, the other builds quiet resentment. You may think you are protecting the relationship by always being available, but sometimes you are slowly damaging it, because every forced yes leaves a small wound inside you. Every time you say it's fine when it is not fine, resentment grows. Every time you sacrifice your peace simply to avoid someone's disappointment, you teach your heart that everybody's comfort matters more than yours. Eventually, you may explode over something small. Then everyone wonders where the anger came from. But the anger did not begin that day. It began with hundreds of boundaries you were afraid to communicate. Healthy distance prevents that. It gives your heart room to breathe. It gives other people room to become responsible for themselves. And it protects relationships from becoming one-sided. There is another reason people stop missing what never leaves. Humans naturally adjust. If someone gives you something every single day, your mind begins treating it as normal. That is why gratitude must be practiced. But you cannot force another person to practice gratitude. What you can control is whether you keep giving beyond what is healthy. Sometimes the most loving decision is to step out of a role you are never supposed to occupy. You are not everyone's therapist. You are not everyone's rescuer. You are not responsible for making sure nobody ever feels lonely. You are not required to answer every emotional emergency immediately. And you certainly are not responsible for carrying someone who refuses to learn how to stand. Help people, yes. Support them, yes. Be compassionate. But remember that even compassion needs wisdom. If your help prevents someone from growing, your help may no longer be helping. If your constant presence teaches them that they never need to solve their own problems, you may be creating dependence instead of strength. Sometimes love says, I believe you can handle this. Sometimes love says, I cannot do that for you. Sometimes love steps back instead of stepping in. And sometimes your absence becomes the space where another person finally grows. Do not feel guilty for allowing that space. You do not have to disappear from people's lives. You simply need to stop disappearing from your own. A healthy person does not ask, how can I make people miss me? A healthy person asks, am I living in balance? That is the better question. Because if your entire strategy becomes making people chase you, you have simply created another form of dependence. Now you are dependent on their reaction. You step back, then constantly check whether they noticed. You stop messaging, then wonder why they have not called. You create distance, then become anxious when they respect it. That is not freedom either. The goal is not to make yourself scarce so people value you. The goal is to value yourself enough that you no longer need constant access to prove connection. Be present when you can be truly present. Be unavailable when you need to protect something important. Do not apologize for every moment you spend living your own life. People who genuinely care for you will learn your rhythm. They will understand that silence does not always mean rejection. They will know that delayed replies do not mean hatred. They will respect your responsibilities, and they will not punish you for having a life outside of them. Most importantly, never become so available to people that you become unavailable to Allah. Sometimes we answer every notification immediately, but delay prayer. We spend hours listening to someone's problems, but claim we have no time to sit quietly and reflect. We know every detail of another person's life, but have barely examined the condition of our own heart. That is when priorities need to change. There should be moments every day when the world cannot reach you, because your heart is turning toward its Creator. There should be moments when people's opinions become quiet, moments when the pressure to respond disappears, moments when you remember that before you belong to any friendship, relationship, job, community, or role, you are a servant of Allah. That identity must come first, because once it does, you stop begging people to notice what Allah already knows. Allah knows every unseen sacrifice, every message you answered while tired, every person you comforted while carrying your own pain, every act of patience nobody thanked you for, every good deed people forgot. Nothing sincere is lost with Him. So when humans stop noticing your goodness, do not let your heart collapse. Their attention was never the final reward. Continue being good, but become wise. Continue loving, but create limits. Continue showing up. But do not make yourself permanently available simply because you are afraid someone might forget you. The right people do not need unlimited access to remember your value. And if someone only realizes your worth when you finally stop carrying them, let that lesson teach you something too. Your presence was valuable all along. You simply gave it so constantly that nobody had the chance to understand its weight. Do not punish yourself for that. Learn, adjust, grow. You do not need to become distant. You need to become intentional. Because a meaningful presence is not measured by how many hours you are available. It is measured by what kind of person you are when you are truly there. And sometimes the healthiest thing you can do for yourself and for others is to step away long enough for everyone to remember that your presence is a gift, not a guarantee. Lesson 5. A boundary reveals what kindness was hiding. You can learn a surprising amount about a relationship from one small word. No, not an angry no, not a cruel no, not a disrespectful no. Just a calm, honest, necessary no. Sometimes you can say yes to someone 100 times, and you still will not fully understand the relationship. Then one day you say no once, and suddenly everything becomes clear. You finally see whether they respected your heart or simply enjoyed your availability. That is why boundaries are powerful. They reveal what endless kindness can hide. As long as you are giving people what they want, many relationships look peaceful. You are answering, helping, agreeing, adjusting, forgiving, making excuses, being patient. Everyone seems happy. But sometimes the peace exists only because one person is constantly sacrificing. That is not always peace. Sometimes it is silence created by fear. You are afraid that if you express your real feelings, they will leave. You are afraid that if you refuse one request, they will call you selfish. You are afraid that if you stop solving their problems, they will stop needing you. So you keep giving. And because you keep giving, you never discover what would happen if you stopped. A boundary answers that question. The moment you say, I cannot do that, watch what happens. A healthy person may feel disappointed, but they will still respect you. They may ask questions, but they will not attack your character. They may wish you could help, but they will understand that you have responsibilities too. An unhealthy person often responds differently. Suddenly you are different. Suddenly you do not care anymore. Suddenly they remind you of everything they have ever done for you. Suddenly they use guilt, silence, anger, pressure, coldness. Maybe they stop speaking to you, hoping you will become afraid and return to your old role. And in that moment, your boundary has revealed something important. Their affection may have been connected to your obedience. That realization can hurt. But truth that hurts for a moment is better than confusion that hurts for years. Many people are not afraid of boundaries because boundaries are cruel. They are afraid because boundaries expose reality. For years you may believe this person loves me deeply, but what happens when you stop giving them everything they want? For years you may believe they respect me, but what happens when your decision is different from theirs? For years you may believe they only want what is best for me, but what happens when what is best for you is inconvenient for them? That is when the relationship reveals its true shape. This is important. Having boundaries does not mean becoming selfish. Selfishness says, only my needs matter. A healthy boundary says, your needs matter and mine matter too. There is a huge difference. You can love someone and still say no. You can care about someone and still protect your time. You can forgive someone and still change how much access they have to you. You can be generous without allowing yourself to be used. You can be patient without accepting repeated disrespect. And you can be a good Muslim without becoming emotionally exhausted trying to satisfy every human being around you. Sometimes people confuse goodness with unlimited tolerance. They think being kind means never confronting. They think being patient means never changing anything. They think forgiveness means returning to exactly the same situation. But wisdom matters. If someone repeatedly crosses the same line because they know you will always forgive without consequence, your silence may be teaching them that the line does not exist. Boundaries give your values a shape. Without boundaries, people only hear what matters to you. With boundaries, they see it. If you say your family matters but abandon them every time another person calls, your actions tell a different story. If you say your health matters but stay awake every night solving someone else's drama, your actions tell a different story. If you say your relationship with Allah matters but allow endless distractions to consume the time meant for worship, your actions tell a different story. A boundary is where your priorities become visible. It says, this matters enough for me to protect. And that protection is not always comfortable. Sometimes people will resist the healthier version of you because the unhealthy version was easier for them. The old you answered immediately. The old you apologized even when you did nothing wrong. The old you accepted disrespect to avoid conflict. The old you kept explaining until everyone approved. The old you carried responsibilities that belonged to grown adults. So when you change, some people will not celebrate. Your growth may feel like a loss to anyone who benefited from your lack of boundaries. That does not automatically mean you are doing something wrong. Sometimes discomfort is simply evidence that a pattern is changing. Imagine someone has been entering your house through an unlocked door for years. One day you put a lock on it. The person may say, why are you treating me differently? But you are not attacking them. You are protecting your home. Your heart also needs doors. Your time needs doors. Your attention needs doors. Not everybody should be able to enter whenever they want. And the people who truly love you will not demand that you remove every lock simply to prove your love. They will knock. They will respect your answer. They will understand that closeness does not cancel respect. There is another reason boundaries matter. They stop resentment before it grows. Many people think they are being kind by constantly saying yes. But inside, frustration is building. You agree to help, then become angry that they asked. You answer the call, then spend the entire conversation wishing it would end. You accept another responsibility, then complain privately about being overwhelmed. That is not sustainable. Sometimes a respectful no is kinder than a resentful yes, because when you say yes honestly, you can give with a clean heart. You are not secretly keeping score. You are not thinking, after everything I do for you, you are not waiting for the day when all your sacrifices will finally be repaid. You gave because you chose to give. And when you could not give, you were honest. That creates healthier relationships. But perhaps your biggest struggle is guilt. You say no and immediately feel terrible. You replay the conversation. Was I too harsh? Maybe I should call them back. Maybe they think I am selfish. Maybe Allah will be displeased with me. And sometimes that guilt is not evidence that you did something wrong. It is simply the discomfort of doing something new. If you have spent years believing that your worth comes from keeping people happy, protecting yourself will initially feel wrong. Your nervous system may confuse boundaries with danger. You may feel anxious when someone is disappointed, but somebody else's disappointment is not automatically evidence of your wrongdoing. You are allowed to make decisions people do not like. You are allowed to say, I do not have the capacity. You are allowed to say, that does not work for me. You are allowed to say, I need time. You are allowed to say, I forgive you, but I cannot continue this pattern. Notice the difference between boundaries and revenge. A boundary says, I need to protect what is healthy. Revenge says, I want you to suffer because I suffered. Keep your intention clean. Do not use silence as punishment. Do not disappear simply to create anxiety. Do not withhold kindness to control people. That is not strength. Strength is being clear without becoming cruel. It is saying what needs to be said without humiliating anyone. It is walking away from disrespect without needing to destroy the person who disrespected you. You can protect your dignity and still protect your character. That is a higher level of strength. Sometimes the boundary may be small. Maybe you stop answering work messages late at night. Maybe you tell a friend you cannot talk for 2 hours every evening. Maybe you refuse to lend money you cannot afford to lose. Maybe you stop accepting jokes that hurt you. Maybe you stop allowing someone to speak badly about others in your presence. Maybe you stop sharing private details with someone who repeatedly breaks your trust. Small boundaries can change your entire emotional life because they teach you something you may have forgotten. You are not powerless. You cannot control other people's behavior, but you can control the access you give to that behavior. You cannot force someone to speak respectfully, but you can end a conversation when they become disrespectful. You cannot force someone to stop using you, but you can stop providing the opportunity. You cannot make someone appreciate you, but you can stop begging for appreciation. That is where peace begins, not when everyone finally behaves exactly how you want, but when you realize that your well-being does not require controlling everyone. You simply decide what you will participate in. And boundaries also reveal the good people. That part is beautiful. When you say, I cannot today, and someone responds, no problem, take care of yourself, pay attention. When you communicate that something hurt you and the person listens, instead of becoming defensive, pay attention. When someone respects your need for space without punishing you, pay attention. When someone does not make your boundary about themselves, pay attention. Those people are showing you something precious. They do not only want access to you, they care about you. Healthy people do not require you to become smaller for the relationship to survive. They allow you to grow. They may not understand every boundary immediately, but they are willing to learn. That is the kind of connection worth protecting. There is also a spiritual boundary many people forget. You need a boundary between the noise of the world and your heart. If every opinion enters you, you will never know what you truly believe. If every criticism becomes a crisis, people will control your emotional state. If every compliment becomes your fuel, you will become dependent on praise. Your heart cannot remain permanently open to every voice. Some voices need distance. Some conversations need to end. Some environments need to be left. Some relationships need less access. And some habits need to be removed completely because they are pulling you away from Allah. A boundary is not just something you place around your schedule. It is something you place around your soul. Guard what enters. Guard what stays. Guard what shapes you. Because not everyone who has access to your life deserves influence over your heart. And remember this, the purpose of a boundary is not to teach another person a lesson. It is to protect the lesson you have learned. You learned that constant access exhausted you, so you change access. You learned that certain conversations damage your peace, so you limit those conversations. You learned that someone repeatedly breaks your trust, so you stop giving them information they cannot protect. You do not have to hate them. You simply stop ignoring reality. That is maturity. Maturity is not pretending everything is fine. Maturity is seeing things clearly without becoming bitter. It is accepting people as they are while deciding how close they should stand to you. Some people can be loved from a distance. Some people can be forgiven without being restored to the same position. Some people can remain in your prayers without remaining in your private life. That is not always hatred. Sometimes it is wisdom. And when your boundary reveals what kindness was hiding, do not rush to close your eyes again. If one respectful no causes someone to destroy the relationship, ask yourself what the relationship was built on. If one moment of self-respect makes them call you selfish, ask whether they ever respected your needs. If someone can only be happy with you when you are exhausted for them, that is not a healthy demand. You deserve relationships where love and respect can exist together, where generosity is appreciated rather than demanded, where your kindness is received with gratitude rather than turned into obligation. So remain kind, remain gentle, remain compassionate, but let your kindness have wisdom, because sometimes one small boundary will show you more truth than years of unlimited giving ever could. Lesson 6. Let your absence reveal your value. There are moments when explaining yourself no longer works. You have explained your exhaustion. You have explained that you need balance. You have explained that you cannot always be the person who calls first, fixes everything, forgives immediately, and keeps the entire connection alive. Yet nothing changes. Sometimes another explanation is not what is needed. Sometimes space is. Not punishment, not manipulation, space. Because there are things people cannot understand while you continue protecting them from the consequences of losing your effort. If you always keep the conversation alive, they never discover how silent it becomes without you. If you always make the plans, they never discover whether they would make an effort themselves. If you always apologize first, they never have to confront their pride. If you always repair what they break, they never understand how much damage they create. You keep saving the relationship from every consequence, then wonder why the other person never changes. Sometimes your absence allows truth to become visible. This can be difficult for a caring person. You notice someone struggling and immediately want to help. You notice silence and immediately want to fill it. You feel distance and immediately want to close it. But every empty space does not need to be filled by you. Sometimes the silence is asking a question. Will they reach out too? Will they notice? Will they take responsibility? Will they make an effort when you stop doing all the work? You may be afraid of the answer. That is often why we keep over-functioning. As long as you keep chasing, you never have to discover whether they would choose you freely. As long as you keep calling, you never have to discover whether they would call you. As long as you keep proving your value, you never have to face the possibility that someone may not value you properly. So you remain busy maintaining something that would collapse without your constant effort. But a relationship you must carry alone is already telling you something. Let go of your side for a moment. See whether there is another side. Again, this is not about playing games. Do not disappear because you want someone to panic. Do not intentionally create fear so you can feel powerful. Do not withhold affection simply to make another person chase you. That is emotional manipulation, and it does not create healthy love. Healthy distance has a different purpose. It says, I am going to stop forcing what should be mutual. That sentence can change your life. Stop forcing conversations. Stop forcing closeness. Stop forcing apologies. Stop forcing invitations. Stop forcing people to understand your worth. Stop forcing yourself into rooms where your presence is treated like an inconvenience. There is peace in allowing people to show you what they freely choose. When you step back, information appears. Some people will come closer, not because you manipulated them, but because they genuinely noticed your absence. They will ask whether you are okay. They will make an effort. They will begin carrying their share of the relationship, and you may discover that they valued you more than you realized. Perhaps they simply became comfortable with you doing too much. Healthy distance can reset that balance. But others may not come. That hurts. Yet even that pain contains clarity. You may discover that what you were calling a relationship was mostly your effort. You were the engine, the planner, the listener, the forgiver, the encourager, the person keeping everything alive. And when you finally stopped, nothing moved. Do not immediately interpret that as proof that you are worthless. Interpret it as information. You have learned where not to keep pouring unlimited energy. That knowledge can save years of your life. One of the biggest mistakes we make is using another person's lack of effort as evidence against our value. They did not call, so maybe I did not matter. They moved on, so maybe I was not special. They did not fight for the relationship, so maybe I was not worth fighting for. No. People's behavior reveals their capacity, priorities, character, and choices. It does not define your worth. Sometimes valuable people are taken for granted. Sometimes loyal people are neglected. Sometimes sincere hearts are mishandled. That does not make sincerity worthless. A diamond does not become cheap because someone failed to recognize it. Your task is not to convince everyone that you are valuable. Your task is to live in a way that honors the value Allah gave you. There is tremendous freedom in that. You no longer need every person to understand you. You no longer need everyone who leaves to regret leaving. You no longer need people to come back begging before you can heal. You can move forward without receiving the apology you hoped for. You can heal without watching someone finally realize what they lost. Because your healing cannot depend on their awakening. Maybe they will understand one day. Maybe they never will. Leave that with Allah. Your job is to learn what the experience was teaching you. Perhaps it was teaching you that you were giving too much. Perhaps it was teaching you that you were ignoring clear signs because loneliness frightened you. Perhaps it was teaching you that you confused being needed with being loved. Perhaps it was teaching you that you were trying to earn a place that should have been given freely. Those lessons are valuable. Take them without taking bitterness. Do not allow disappointment to turn you into someone you do not recognize. The goal is not to become cold. It is not to say, I will never care again. That gives one painful relationship too much power over your future. Instead say, next time I will care with wisdom. That is growth. You can still be generous, but you observe whether generosity is mutual. You can still be supportive, but you notice whether someone supports you too. You can still give people chances, but you stop giving endless chances to someone who keeps choosing the same harmful behavior. You can still love deeply, but you do not make another person the center of your identity. Your absence can also reveal your value to yourself. This may be the most important part. When you step away from constantly serving someone, you suddenly discover how much of yourself you had abandoned. Maybe you begin sleeping better. Maybe you finally focus on work. Maybe you return to something you loved. Maybe prayer becomes calmer because your mind is no longer constantly waiting for a message. Maybe you notice that your anxiety decreases. Maybe you realize how much emotional energy the relationship was consuming, and slowly you begin meeting yourself again. That can feel strange. When you have spent a long time being needed, peace can initially feel empty. You may confuse calmness with loneliness. You may miss the chaos because chaos made you feel important. Someone always needed advice. Someone always needed comfort. Someone always had a crisis. Your phone was constantly active, so you felt significant. Then suddenly it becomes quiet, and you wonder, who am I if nobody needs me right now? That is a powerful question, because your identity must be deeper than your usefulness to people. You are still worthy when nobody is asking for help. You still have purpose when your phone is silent. You still matter when no one is praising your kindness. Your relationship with Allah does not become more valuable because humans applaud it. Your life does not become meaningful only when someone needs something from you. Learn to exist without constantly proving your usefulness. Learn to sit quietly. Learn to enjoy a day where nobody needs rescuing. Learn to build a life that is meaningful even when no one is watching. That is emotional freedom. There is another beautiful thing that happens when you stop chasing constant connection. You begin noticing who naturally walks beside you. Some relationships become easier. You do not have to perform. You do not have to impress. You do not have to prove that you care every day. There is trust. You can disappear into your responsibilities for a while, return, and the connection remains warm. That is what secure relationships feel like. They give you room to breathe. You do not spend every silent hour wondering whether you are being replaced. You do not panic because somebody took longer to reply, and they do not punish you for being busy. There is freedom because there is trust. If a relationship requires constant performance to stay alive, ask what exactly you are protecting. Sometimes we chase people because we are afraid that without constant effort they will discover they can live without us. But healthy love is not about making yourself impossible to live without. That is dependence. Healthy love is choosing one another freely while still being complete human beings with responsibilities, purpose, and a relationship with Allah. You do not need someone to collapse without you in order to prove that you mattered. You do not need them to suffer after your absence. You do not need revenge. Let your absence reveal whatever it reveals. Then respond with wisdom. If they value you and return with greater effort, consider what a healthier relationship could look like. If they barely notice, accept the information without humiliating yourself trying to force a different result. Sometimes Allah removes the need for constant explanation by simply showing you reality. You prayed for clarity. Then perhaps the clarity arrived as distance. You asked to know who genuinely cared. Then perhaps life created a situation where you could no longer carry everyone. Watch what happens. Who checks on you? Who only checks when they need something? Who respects your silence? Who becomes angry because they lost access? Who still speaks kindly about you when you are not useful to them? These things teach you, but be careful not to become obsessed with testing people. Do not turn every relationship into an experiment. Do not disappear constantly just to see who notices. That creates anxiety for everyone. Live normally. Protect your balance. Allow mutual effort to happen naturally. The truth will reveal itself with time. And while you are creating healthier space, fill that space with something meaningful. Do not spend every hour staring at your phone waiting for someone to prove your value. Pray, work, learn, exercise, serve your family, read, rest, build something, improve your character, return to goals you neglected. Use your energy to create a life you respect. Because the greatest transformation happens when your absence from unhealthy patterns becomes your presence in your own life. Perhaps you were absent from your dreams because you were always solving theirs. Absent from your peace because you were always absorbing their chaos. Absent from prayer because you were constantly available to messages. Absent from your body because you were ignoring exhaustion. Absent from your own feelings because everyone else's feelings came first. Come back. Not with anger, with awareness. You do not need to announce the change. You do not need to send a long speech saying, "From now on, I know my worth." Just live differently. People will notice. Your time will become more protected. Your yes will become more meaningful. Your no will become calmer. Your relationships will become clearer, and your heart will become less dependent on being constantly chosen. Then something powerful happens. Your presence becomes a choice instead of a fear response. You show up because you care. Not because you are afraid that if you do not show up, someone will forget you. You give because generosity feels right, not because you are terrified of becoming unnecessary. That is when your love becomes cleaner, more sincere, more peaceful. And the people who are meant to walk with you will not require you to exhaust yourself just to keep them near. Let your absence reveal your value. But even more importantly, let your absence from unhealthy patterns reveal your value to you. Once you understand it, you stop begging other people to confirm it. Lesson 7, become harder to use, not harder to love. Pain can teach the wrong lesson if you are not careful. Someone uses your kindness, so you decide to stop being kind. Someone betrays your trust, so you decide never to trust again. Someone takes advantage of your generosity, so you promise yourself that nobody will ever receive anything from you again. At first, this feels like strength. You say, "Nobody will hurt me again." You build walls. You stop opening up. You stop caring as deeply. You become suspicious of everyone. But eventually, you may realize that the person who hurt you is gone while the walls remain. Now, innocent people are paying the price for what someone else did. That is not healing. Healing does not require you to become cold. It requires you to become wise. The goal is not to become harder to love. The goal is to become harder to use. There is a huge difference. A hard heart says, "I trust nobody." A wise heart says, "Trust will grow with consistency." A hard heart says, "I do nothing for anyone." A wise heart says, "I give where giving is healthy." A hard heart says, "I need nobody." A wise heart says, "I can love people without making them responsible for my entire emotional world." That is strength with softness, and softness matters. The world already has enough people who were wounded and decided to spread their wound. Someone betrayed them, so they betray. Someone ignored them, so they become emotionally unavailable. Someone humiliated them, so they begin humiliating others before anyone can hurt them again. Pain becomes inherited, but you can stop that cycle. You can say, "What happened to me will make me wiser, not crueler." That decision is powerful. Maybe you were too available before. That does not mean availability itself is evil. Perhaps the problem was that you offered unlimited access without observing character. You gave trust before trust had been built. You gave your time before you knew whether someone respected it. You gave second, third, 10th, and 20th chances without requiring change. You confused forgiveness with removing all consequences. You ignored patterns because you wanted to believe intentions were enough. Now you know better. Use that knowledge. You do not need to become suspicious of every new person. Simply move more slowly. Let people earn deeper access through consistency. Anyone can behave beautifully for one day. Character is revealed across time. Watch how people behave when they are disappointed. Watch how they speak about people who cannot benefit them. Watch how they respond when you say no. Watch whether their promises become actions. Watch whether they respect your private information. Watch whether they celebrate your growth or quietly compete with it. Watch whether they only contact you when they need something. You do not need to judge people harshly. Just pay attention. Many painful relationships survive longer than they should because we refuse to believe what repeated behavior is showing us. We keep listening to words while ignoring patterns. "I care about you," but they repeatedly disappear when you need support. "I respect you," but they repeatedly cross boundaries you clearly communicated. "I am sorry," but the same behavior continues without effort to change. Words matter, but patterns tell the deeper story. Becoming harder to use means you stop allowing beautiful words to erase consistent evidence. You can forgive someone and still say, I need to see change. You can love someone and still recognize that closeness is unhealthy. You can wish them well without giving them the same access they had before. That is maturity. And there is another important part. Stop advertising that you have no limits. Sometimes we proudly say, I am always here for everyone. It sounds noble, but ask yourself whether it is sustainable. Always? For everyone? That is an impossible promise. Even the people you love most cannot have every hour of your life. You have limited energy. You have responsibilities. And accepting your limits is not failure, it is reality. You become harder to use when you stop feeling guilty about having limits. Someone asks for something you cannot give. You say no. No 20-minute explanation. No desperate attempt to make them approve. Just respect and clarity. Someone sends a message while you are working. You finish your work first. Someone wants emotional support at a time when you are exhausted. You can say, I care about you, but I do not have the energy for this conversation tonight. That is not abandonment. That is honesty. Someone repeatedly comes to you with the same problem but ignores every solution. Eventually you may realize they do not want guidance. They want a place to release their emotions without changing anything. You can care without participating in that pattern forever. Becoming harder to use also means you stop volunteering for responsibilities nobody asked you to carry. This happens often to compassionate people. You enter a room and immediately sense everyone's emotions. Someone seems upset and you feel responsible. Someone is quiet and you wonder what you did wrong. Someone struggles and you rush to fix it. Slow down. Not every emotion in the room belongs to you. Not every uncomfortable silence requires your intervention. Not every problem is your assignment. Ask yourself, did Allah actually make me responsible for this? Or did my fear of disappointing people volunteer me? That question can save enormous energy. Sometimes another person needs to experience the natural result of their decisions. If you keep protecting them from every consequence, they may never learn. A parent can do this with an adult child. A friend can do this with another friend. A spouse can do this inside marriage. A coworker can do this at work. One responsible person quietly carries everything, while the other becomes less responsible because somebody always catches what they drop. Eventually, resentment grows. The healthier answer is not necessarily anger. It may simply be returning responsibility to the person it belongs to. This is yours to handle. Those words can be loving. They communicate trust. I believe you are capable. We sometimes think rescuing proves love, but empowering someone can be a deeper form of love. There is also a difference between generosity and fear. Generosity says, I have something to give and I choose to give it. Fear says, if I do not give, maybe you will leave. Generosity feels open. Fear feels desperate. Generosity can accept gratitude or lack of gratitude without losing itself. Fear keeps score because it secretly expects the giving to secure love. Be honest about which one is driving you. If your kindness is constantly followed by anxiety, there may be something underneath it. Maybe you are not simply trying to help. Maybe you are trying to become impossible to leave. You hope that if you are useful enough, patient enough, available enough, forgiving enough, then nobody will walk away. But people are human beings with free choices. You cannot purchase permanent loyalty with sacrifice, and you should not have to. The people who truly value you will not require self-destruction as the entrance fee to their love. So release the impossible job of making yourself indispensable. You do not need to be indispensable. You need to be sincere. This is where your relationship with Allah becomes your anchor. If your heart is built entirely around people's approval, boundaries will always feel dangerous. Every no will feel like a risk. Every disagreement will feel like a threat. Every moment of distance will feel like rejection. But when your deepest sense of security comes from Allah, people's changing moods lose some of their control over you. You can survive being misunderstood. You can survive someone being temporarily disappointed. You can survive someone deciding that your new boundaries no longer benefit them. You do not need to destroy yourself to prevent every departure. Some people leaving may actually create room for healthier relationships. And sometimes nobody needs to leave at all. Sometimes your boundaries simply teach good people how to love you better. Do not assume everyone who crossed a boundary intended to use you. They may never have known the boundary existed. Maybe you never communicated it. Perhaps you laughed when something hurt. Perhaps you said it's okay when it was not. Perhaps you always answered, so they assumed you did not mind. Give healthy people a chance to adjust. Say what you need calmly, then observe. A sincere person often responds with care. They may make mistakes, but they try. An exploitative person often treats your boundary like a personal attack. That difference matters. Becoming harder to use is not about building walls so high nobody can enter. It is about installing doors. Walls say nobody gets close. Doors say closeness requires trust. That is healthier. Some people belong at the front gate. Some belong in the living room. Very few belong in the most private rooms of your heart. Not everyone needs to know your deepest fears. Not everyone needs access to your private struggles. Not everyone needs an immediate answer. Not everyone deserves the same level of trust. Love can be wide. Access should be wise. You can wish goodness for many people without giving everyone authority over your emotions. That is especially important in a world where constant communication creates the illusion that everyone should always be reachable. A phone in your hand does not mean everyone owns your time. The fact that someone can contact you does not mean you must respond immediately. Technology created constant access. Wisdom must create limits. Otherwise, you will spend your whole life reacting. One notification, another message, another request, another crisis, another opinion. And at the end of the day, you may have given pieces of yourself to 50 people while giving almost nothing to the life Allah asked you to build. Become difficult to distract from your purpose. Become difficult to pressure into betraying your values. Become difficult to guilt into saying yes. Become difficult to manipulate with silence. Become difficult to control through praise or criticism. But remain easy to approach with sincerity. Easy to apologize to. Easy to speak honestly with. Easy to love when love is respectful. Easy to forgive when repentance is real. Easy to appreciate. Easy to trust when someone has earned that trust. There is beauty in remaining soft without remaining naive. That balance is rare. Anyone can become hard after pain. It takes deeper strength to stay kind while becoming discerning. To say, I will not hate you, but I will not let you use me again. To say, I forgive you, but I learned. To say, I want good for you, but I cannot continue this pattern. To say, my heart is still soft, but my boundaries are stronger now. That is growth. And perhaps the most important boundary is the one you create with yourself. Stop breaking your own promises. You tell yourself you need rest, then agree to another unnecessary demand. You tell yourself you will stop chasing someone, then send another message because silence became uncomfortable. You tell yourself you will protect your dignity, then accept the same disrespect because loneliness becomes frightening. Your boundaries mean little if you repeatedly negotiate against yourself. Learn to trust your own decisions. If you know something repeatedly damages your peace, do not keep returning simply because you miss the familiar. Missing something does not mean it belongs in your life. You can miss a person and still know distance is healthier. You can love someone and still know the relationship needs limits. You can remember beautiful moments without pretending the painful patterns were acceptable. Two things can be true at once. That maturity protects you from extreme thinking. You do not need to decide they were completely terrible. Maybe they had good qualities. Maybe you shared real memories. Maybe they helped you in certain seasons. And maybe the relationship still became unhealthy. Acknowledging the good does not require returning to the harmful. Likewise, acknowledging harm does not require erasing every good memory. You can hold the truth with balance. That is part of becoming harder to manipulate. Manipulation often depends on confusion. One kind moment makes you forget months of disrespect. One apology makes you ignore repeated behavior. One emotional conversation convinces you everything has changed. Slow down. Real change survives time. You do not need to rush. Let actions become evidence. And while you are learning to protect yourself, make sure your own boundaries do not become excuses for selfishness. Sometimes people misuse the language of boundaries. They say, I am protecting my peace, when they are actually avoiding responsibility. They say, I do not owe anyone anything, when someone they genuinely wronged deserves an apology. They say, I am cutting off negativity, simply because somebody gave them honest advice. That is not what healthy boundaries mean. Boundaries protect you from harm. They do not protect you from accountability. You still need humility. You still need to hear difficult truths. You still need to apologize when you are wrong. You still need to fulfill responsibilities. You still need to sacrifice sometimes for people you love. A healthy life includes sacrifice. The difference is that sacrifice is chosen with wisdom, not demanded through manipulation. Sometimes you will be tired and still help your family. Sometimes you will change your plans for someone you love. Sometimes you will stay awake for a person going through real pain. That does not make you weak. Love does require effort. The question is whether the relationship contains mutual respect and whether your sacrifice is becoming a permanent expectation. Do not become so afraid of being used that you stop serving. Serving others is beautiful when your intention is clean and your limits are healthy. Give, help, encourage, support, but do it from a heart that belongs first to Allah. Then if people appreciate you, you are grateful. If they forget to appreciate you, your entire identity does not collapse because you are not giving solely for applause. And when somebody repeatedly takes advantage of your goodness, you can step back without becoming evil yourself. That may be the final lesson of this entire journey. Do not allow someone's poor treatment to choose your character for you. They were careless with your kindness. Remain kind, but wiser. They misused your trust. Do not stop trusting everyone. Learn how trust is earned. They took your availability for granted. Do not disappear from the world. Simply stop giving unlimited access. They made you feel that your value depended on what you could provide. Remember that your value was never created by your usefulness. You can protect yourself without losing yourself. You can become stronger without becoming colder. You can become selective without becoming arrogant. You can learn to say no without losing your ability to say yes with love. And when you reach that place, people may notice something different about you. You are still warm, still generous, still compassionate, but there is peace in you now. You no longer rush to prove yourself. You no longer chase people who keep walking away. You no longer explain your boundaries 10 times. You no longer become terrified every time someone is disappointed. Your heart is soft, but your life has structure. Your kindness remains, but your desperation is gone. Your love remains, but your fear has become smaller. That is what it means to become harder to use without becoming harder to love. And perhaps that is the healthiest form of strength. A heart that still loves deeply, but finally understands that love should never require you to abandon the person Allah entrusted you to protect you. Oh Allah, give me a soft heart without making me easy to use. Give me wisdom to know when to give, when to step back, and when to say no. Protect my time, my peace, and my intentions, and keep my heart attached to you above the approval of people. Ameen.